Hello, welcome to another edition of the Fifth Quarter. I'm Mike Ciarochi, sports editor of Herald-Standard.com, joined as always by George Von Benko, author of Memory Lane, the book, the column, and also a WMBS radio personality.
Forthcoming movie. I'm just
short story.
A short story, yeah. Everybody was wondering how they would react after the disappointing loss. They reacted well. They did what they normally do.
A little better than the winners of that Baltimore game.
Boy, they stubbed their toe again.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable. And who would have thought? Everybody was saying the sky was falling after they were swept by Baltimore. They're going into the bye week, and the Steelers are in first place in the AFC North.
Yes, and tied for the best record in the AFC with the I guess you could call them surprising Houston Texans. I mean, they've been kind of on the cusp for a number of years, and they seem to be finally getting over the hump. They look like a for sure playoff team. Of course, they're the only team not named Baltimore that has beaten the Steelers this year.
Yep. So, but a workmanlike win. There were a couple of things that happened that were disturbing, but the most enjoyable aspect of that whole win was the fact that they forced 2 turnovers.
Yes. And, of course, we're talking about the Steelers' 24-17 win at Cincinnati this past weekend. They got 2 turnovers. Both of them basically, William Gay had a hand in both of them after being the
scapegoat.
The goat a week earlier against Baltimore. He comes through with the big plays. He batted the ball up in the air, went right into Lawrence Timmons' hand on one interception, and he came up with the interception all by himself. Although, if you ask him, he said all he did was play Dick LeBeau's scheme, and he played it perfectly.
He's a smart man. Talk up the defensive coordinator. If you want to keep playing, you talk up the defensive coordinator.
William Gay, as I wrote in my column on Herald-Standard.com today, he's having an outstanding season. He just, it's one of those, when you're on the island, as a cornerback is,
you're going to get burned occasionally. And let's be honest about that play. We've talked about the touchdown by ball. You could have very easily called pass interference on the Baltimore receiver for pushing off, and Ryan Clark has admitted time and time again that he messed up. He wasn't over the top. He wasn't back where he was supposed to be.
Well, of course, if William Gay manages to make that play, no one has to come up and defend him or anything. Maybe if they share the blame for the one that got away, there's really no point in trying to share this one. Although William Gay pretty much declined the accolade. Didn't really want to be praised. He said all I did was, he's coached the boat, put me in a position. And, I spoke with Ryan Clark about it. I said, hey, this guy doesn't want to take any of the credit here. He said, all he's doing is playing the scheme. And Ryan Clark said, yeah, that is right. He said, I said, it looked like he just jumped that play, like he knew it was coming, blah, blah, blah. And he was, you could see him sprinting toward the ball when it was in the air before it even got to him. And Ryan Clark said, that's what you call playing the defense. When you play the defense properly, those kind of plays happen. That's his read. He made the read. He went up and made the play.
And a few good things to look at offensively. 328 total yards, 105 rushing, 223 passing. Antonio Brown continues to impress. How about these numbers, Mike? He caught 5 passes for 86 yards, including 4 in that one drive that led to a touchdown.
4 for 70-some yards.
Right. But in the last 3 games, Antonio Brown has caught 26 passes for 364 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's pretty good.
Yes. Yeah, I had the number wrong. We just say four catches on this field goal drive right before halftime, and the total drive was 67 yards. And it should be fairly easy to pick out which ones were not his. There's a 4-yard game by Mendenhall.
Incomplete.
Heath Miller for 7, so that's 11. I'd say it's safe to say all but 11 yards.
Here's the pass to Antonio Brown for 21 yards.
Yeah. He had all but 11 on that.
Here's
drive,
15 yards.
Yeah.
And here's 17 yards.
50 would be 56 yards on the one drive. And it was a field goal drive. He also converted 2 third downs, I believe, back to back on that drive. 3rd and 19, he came up with a 21-yard gain. and a 3rd and 9, a 15-yard reception. So, yeah, and, he's really coming on, and that begs the next question. It's not necessarily Antonio Brown related, but Hines Ward is becoming the odd man out in this.
He caught one pass for a first down, and
10 yards. But Jericho Cotchery, I think, is taking plays away, taking time away from.
Well, he looked good, and he looked like he was on the same page with Roethlisberger on a lot of those plays. So Hines right now, and you still got in a couple of weeks, Emmanuel Sanders is going to come back, and they're going to give him play time.
And to tell you what kind of a guy Jericho Cotchery is, we were talking to him after the game about how there's so many weapons at Ben's disposal now between Mike Wallace, Antonio Brown, Heath Miller, Cotchery, even Wesley Saunders had a catch. And, I brought up all these different possibilities to him, and he said, you know what? He said, after this bye, we're going to have Hines Ward back healthy. A little while longer before Emmanuel Sanders is ready, but, boy, those guys are really going to be dangerous once they get all the pieces back.
Mm-hmm. And Mendenhall, 16 carries, 44 yards, only 2.8 yards per carry. Mm-hmm. But I really liked the touchdown run. He showed some toughness on the touchdown run.
Yeah. It looked like he was down a couple of times and just kept the legs churning, kept the legs under him and churning, and finished them off.
And now we got that
these
other
numbers
tough
over here.
The other tough running back, that Mike Wallace guy.
Right. He was the second leading rusher in the game.
He was running through tackles too.
Career high 31 yards on 2 end arounds that the Steelers ran, both effective. That really boosts. It was actually, you could make a point that Mike Wallace helped them get a 100-yard rushing game. You figure if he has 31 yards and they finish with 105, and of course that's not counting. That is counting a couple of Ben Roethlisberger knees at the end of the game, taking a knee. But workmanlike, as you mentioned, performance. I liked how the Steelers opened the game. You go on the road to an AFC opponent, AFC North Division opponent on the road, and defense. You put the defense out there first. They come up with a 3-and-out. Offense goes 8 plays, 54 yards, touchdown, 7-0. Defense again, a little rested, well rested, I should say. Another 3-and-out for the Bengals. The Steelers get the ball back again and go 9 plays, 78 yards, another touchdown, 14-0. Before the Bengals really kind of knew what was going on. Before a lot of the Bengals fans took their seats, I'm guessing.
Yeah, and Andy Dalton, I liked some of the things I saw, but he had to take what they were giving him. I think the Steelers got a little bit of a break in him losing his deep threat. A.J. Green was injured in the second corner after catching the touchdown pass, and I really like what I see of him. I think he's going to be a very good player.
I think the same thing could be said of Marvin Lewis's entire team. They impressed me. Cincinnati is not the pushover they once were in the AFC North or in the AFC or anywhere else. They're a good, solid team. Got rid of a few of the
malcontents.
The
actors.
The 2 wide receivers and a quarterback gone from last year's team. And you know what? It seems like it's a pretty harmonious locker room now. I mean, I'm not there, not to see it every day or anything like that, but they played as though they get along, like they like each other.
And that wasn't always the case before. No. I mean, you had T.O. sniping on the sidelines at Carson Palmer and Ocho Cinco sniping at the quarterback. And there were...
About T.O.
About T.O. It was almost like a three-ring circus.
Yeah. For the longest time, I couldn't figure out why Marvin Lewis would want to stay in Cincinnati. Then I was wondering why the Bengals would want to keep him around after a couple of the seasons they had there. But you know what? He stayed the course. He's a good, solid coach. He has a good, solid team together this week. And you know who they have next on the schedule? The Baltimore Ravens.
And it would be nice to see them knock off the Ravens. Yeah. And who can figure out what's going on with Baltimore?
Yeah.
I mean, that's twice now that they have beaten the Steelers and then come up a cropper in the following game.
Yeah.
But they go out to Seattle and suffer a 22-17 loss out there. And I think Flacco had a rough day, 29 of 52 for 255 yards. He couldn't get anything down the field. He had to throw underneath. Ray
Rice was limited to 4 carries, 6 carries, something like that.
Something like that, and Seattle did a number on them, and you have to wonder. Is Baltimore just a team that gets up for Pittsburgh and they can't beat the other teams?
You know what? There's a lot to be said for that. And I will say this. It's not easy to travel across the country all the way to Seattle, which is probably the longest flight for an East Coast team going to the West Coast.
But we saw Seattle
terrifically long. Well,
and they're not. They're not a good football team.
No, but they got up 10-0 in the first quarter. I know when we were on the bus headed to the airport in Cincinnati. Checked on my phone and looked and saw the scores. Wow, Seattle 10, Baltimore nothing.
And the talking heads on television, there was a lot of conversation about Baltimore's play out there, and that they just felt that they laid a lot of it on Harbaugh, not getting his team up to go out to play a game out there. And that's the 4th loss to a sub 500 team since Harbaugh took over.
Well, they got a couple of them this year, I believe, right?
They lost to Jacksonville, and they lost to Seattle.
Yeah.
And the other loss was to Tennessee.
Yeah, and they were probably teetering at 500 or below a little bit.
Yeah.
Now the Steelers 7-3 heading into the bye.
And you're going to get some people healthy.
Yeah, and you're going to get some people healthy. Mike Tomlin, the Steelers coach, we asked him after the game, what do you think? Coming in 7-3 through 10 games, and he's like, "Hey," he said, "I'll take it." He said, "I'm not going to say I'm ecstatic about it or
but they're sitting in a pretty good position."
Yeah, they're in a pretty good position. He said, "If we were 10-0, he said I'd be pleased." But,
right. Yeah.
Short of that, you're going to have to just take where you are and move on from there. There was some talk on the radio last night I heard on my way home about whether. What you expect from here on the last 6 games.
Well, and they're coming into a part of the schedule that people thought was going to be, although San Francisco is sitting out there, and the more I see San Francisco, the more I'm starting to believe that they're a pretty good football team.
Yeah, yeah, they are. They're getting it together pretty good. So the Steelers get to rest up this week. There was speculation that they could run the table from here on. I mean, I would say the San Francisco game, being on the road and that the 49ers are playing pretty well, might be a little bump in the road, a little tougher.
But they'll cross that bridge when they come to it.
Yeah.
Right now you're going to get Woodley back probably, which is going to help the defense because I don't think they had any sacks. Did they have any sacks?
I don't believe so. I don't think they did. For Steelers
sacks. No. So,
but they did get the 2 turnovers.
They did get the 2 turnovers. So, as I said, I think despite all of the gnashing of teeth and people saying the sky is falling, they're sitting in pretty good shape.
Yeah, they are. They are. They're getting healthy and they're developing some good depth behind the starters along the way. I think they were pretty fortunate to get Al Woods back in the fold. He came in here as a rookie free agent, almost made the team last year. Bounced around a little bit from here to there, and
knock on wood, keep that line healthy because the more repetition they get with the guys in places they are right now, I think is only going to be better for them.
So that'll just about wrap up this edition. I'm not sure when we're going to be back with the bye coming up, but thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you sometime soon.
And happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to one and all.